Amy, thanks for your encouraging call. Our phone lines are open for you right now here on Joel Osteen Live. Our number is 888-777-9674. From Florida, TC. Welcome to the show, TC.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hey, Joel, how's it going?
Hey, doing great, TC. Thanks for calling.
Hey, thank you, sir. I just wanted to leave a story of inspiration for folks today. Back in 2012, at 48 years of age, I suffered a sudden cardiac arrest in my home. Actually was clinically dead for a minute and a half to 2 minutes before I was revived by the paramedics. Actually, the survival rate for an out-of-the-hospital sudden cardiac arrest is less than 1%. You just don't make it, and if you do make it, you're going to have some sort of mental deficit because of the lack of oxygen and blood flow to the brain. And yet I did survive, and I came out of that incident without spot or blemish. As a matter of fact, within 10 seconds of being placed in the ambulance is when it occurred. And my wife, knowing at the time that something was not right, all she could say was, Jesus, 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 as she was pacing back and forth. And she had no idea what was happening to me within that ambulance. And my sister was on a business trip in Detroit, Michigan. 2 o'clock in the morning, the Lord had woken her up to pray, and she didn't know who she was to pray for. And I can tell you this, that when I came back into that ambulance, I didn't make deals with the Lord. You know, people can try to put it into movies and try to emulate that into a movie, but I have to tell you, it was a very chaotic scene. The sirens were going, they were calling in my vital signs to the hospital, and yet I had a peace that passed all understanding. And I tell people I didn't make deals with God, because it was just surreal, the peace that he had given me in that in time. And I want you to know that within 90 days of being released from the hospital, I came home and I wrote a book about that experience called God Says When. And I actually published it up on Amazon. And for a day, I actually beat your book, Joel, for one day.
That's great.
So I took you down for a day.
That's all right.
I want people to know that regardless of what you may be facing, regardless of how dark your night is, if God can breathe life into my dead body after 2 minutes, then he can do a miracle for you. God says when. A man doesn't say when. A doctor doesn't say when. A judge doesn't say when. A lawyer doesn't say when. God says when. He's got the final say in the matter. And finally, Joel, I want you to know if you stay faithful to the Lord, he'll give you that jump shot you've been praying for.
That's funny. I'm going to do going to take a lot of faithfulness, I guess. But I love that. TC, fantastic story and just the goodness of God. And I love your book. We'll have to look it up when God on Amazon. That's fantastic. And just again and again, Paul, I love that too about his sister woke up 2 o'clock in the morning. I've woken up before. Man, I bet you have too, and you just sense something that's not right. It's just, and I've learned to don't just think, oh man, what is it? I've learned to just pray. Just, Lord, whatever that is. I pray for family and friends or whatever this burden is, and again and again, it's a longer story. One time I woke up and I found out something was, really tragic had happened, but I thought, you know what, God had just woken me up to pray for that family to help them get through that difficult time, but I love that. Less than 1% survival rate, Paul, but you know what God can do? God can do what it looks impossible.
Yeah, his statistics are right, so it's a miracle. But I love the fact that going through that difficult time, chaos, you may be in chaos today, but he had a peace that passed understanding, past all understanding. That's because Jesus was with him, and he was right there with him. I think about that scripture that says God is ever-present help in the time of trouble. So I love that story, TC. I can't wait to see your book.
You're listening to Joel Osteen here on Joel Osteen Radio. In the studio with us this afternoon is